Okay, the new. Hello everyone and welcome to day 20 of Terrorthon. You surely must have seen this coming sooner or later. The Loch Ness Monster. A creature that has been reported to live in Loch Ness, here in sunny Scotland. One of our biggest exports and a cryptid that almost the entire world has heard of. But what exactly is Nessie? Is it even real? Let's get into it. So the Loch Ness Monster is reported to be a creature that lives in Loch Ness in the Scottish Highlands. Usually described as a large, long-necked, green, reptilian, dinosauric, even dragon-esque creature with humps, and is often considered to be a plesiosaur. The first time any mention was made of a creature living in Loch Ness was in the book The Life of St. Columba, written in the 6th century, in which a man is mauled by a creature who drags him underwater while he's burying a man by the River Ness. Not Loch Ness, the River Ness, that's important. And then in 1871 or possibly 1872, a man named D. Mackenzie reported an object resembling a log or an upturned boat wriggling and churning up the water in Loch Ness. And then in 1888, a man named Alexander MacDonald sighted a large, stubby-legged animal surfacing from the loch, and he claimed that it looked like a giant salamander. And then in 1933, the best-known sighting of Nessie happened. It was published in the Inverness Courier by the Loch Ness water bailiff, Alex Campbell, who discussed the sighting by Aldi Mackay of an enormous creature with the body of a whale rolling in the loch. That same year, another sighting was made by a man named George Spicer, who described a creature with a large body, with a long, wavy, narrow neck, and the creature apparently had no limbs. He said it was the closest thing to a dragon or dinosaur that he and his wife had ever seen, and this triggered mass interest in the Loch Ness Monster. And this was the very article that solidified the name Loch Ness Monster. Then in 1934, the most famous photograph of Nessie came out, which was known as the surgeon's photograph. It was taken by a London gynecologist of all things, named Robert Kenneth Wilson, but he didn't want his name to be associated with this picture, hence why it became known as the surgeon's photograph. It was almost certainly a hoax perpetrated by a man who wanted revenge on the Daily Mail because they had ridiculed photographs he'd sent in, reportedly showing Nessie's footprints. Then in 1960 a film was released called the Dinsdale Film, and it was a film of a hump that had left a wake in the water crossing Loch Ness, and when this video was enhanced in 1993, it was noticed that there was a rear body on the creature underwater, and from this point on, sightings of the Loch Ness Monster were commonplace. They carried on all the way up to the present day, and as technology improved and became more accessible, most of these sightings came with videos, which were quickly discredited in one way or another. But then in 2011, a sonar image was released of Loch Ness, which detected a 5-foot wide unidentified object that followed a boat for 2 minutes. Most recently in 2022, a man went diving in Loch Ness. He didn't find a monster, but what he did discover is that the loch is a lot deeper than people had originally thought, and he couldn't see anything. He described it as swimming in complete blackness because the water was filled with peat that had washed down from the bogs smothering the surrounding mountains, and he specifically said that the depths of Loch Ness were large enough to hide a submarine. Then later this year, the University of Bath concluded that plesiosaurs actually lived in freshwater environments regularly, making the existence of Nessie possible. Searches have been conducted all the way from 1934 to 2018, with mixed findings, including a large moving object at a depth of 180 metres, which was larger than a fish and was possibly a species that had never been detected before. Some possible explanations for all the Nessie sightings include known animals being misidentified, such as birds leaving wakes in the loch, eels, elephants, and maybe even sharks. It could also be inanimate objects such as trees, wakes left by the wind, optical effects from the wind, or maybe it's just been a series of hoaxes all these years. Now that's all well and good, but whenever people come to visit Scotland, they always have the cheek to ask you, is there a Loch Ness Monster? Of course there is. See you tomorrow.